Okay, so we did all of this and now we are at the data link layer. And here is one of the very special things about the data link layer. It actually has two sublayers. One is the logical link control, which is up here, and then the media access control down here. Now, I'm going to give you a little intro into this. The logical link control goes from here to the logical side of the network, which is connected to the network layer. And the media access control is actually connecting this layer with the physical media, okay? It could be a wire or it could be the air, right? If it's wireless. So that's what it is. But the data link layer is the only one that actually has two sublayers, okay? So layers 1 and 2, and when we talk about that, this is layer 1, which is the physical, and data link is layer 2, right? Layers 1 or 2 are responsible for interacting with the hardware, right? So these protocols are programmed, which means that all the logic stuff that they do, it's all in the firmware, which is basically into the hardware, right, of the computer. And in this case, it's not the computer itself, but it's actually the network interface card or NIC. Okay, that's where it's programmed. That stuff is programmed into that. So layer 2 is in charge of accessing the hardware, right? Now, what kind of hardware it's going to access, as I said, well, it depends. For example, if it's wirely, with a wire connected with a wire, then we're talking about a Cat5 cable that will be Ethernet, right? And if it's going to connect through the air, then it's going to be Wi-Fi. So the protocol that the data link layer is going to use will depend on the kind of hardware that it's going to try to access, okay? Now, also, just like with the layers above, right? Whenever there is information that needs to go in there, whenever it's encapsulated and sent down, the information for this layer is going to be right in the header. Now, there is another different thing from the protocols above, and that is that the data link layer has a header and it also has a trailer, meaning that the encapsulation doesn't just add something at the beginning of the frame in this case, right? But it also adds something at the end of the frame, right? So the frame is working like that. Now, remember, the protocol data units, or how they are called at different layers, are very important, okay? So in the network, we had packets, and we have segments, right? And in here, we definitely have frames. So make sure that whenever you refer to a data unit, you're addressing it with the correct name. So as we saw, the data link layer has two sublayers, right? The sublayer, the media access control or MAC sublayer, which is the lowest one, right? That one contains a particular address and it's called the MAC address. And you will hear me talk about the MAC address a lot. Okay, and if you don't know this yet, the MAC address actually is the hardware address. Okay, and this one is unique in the world. So nobody else has the same MAC address, and it's actually embedded into the hardware, right? So actually, in order to get numbers, MAC numbers for their devices, those companies that produce hardware that goes in layer 2, they have to request a range of MAC addresses. So when they produce their products, they have that MAC address that is unique in the world and it's only for their product, right? So actually, if you Google this, you can go online and say, oh, a range of MAC addresses for a particular company, and it will tell you, the MAC address range for each company. Okay, so that's actually interesting, and that's the way that it's managed, by vendor. Now, these MAC addresses are short range, and by that is kind of local address. MAC address is only known within your network, with your local area network, right? Or your home network, your SOHO, right? That's where it's known, because it's really impossible to use a MAC address to actually route something throughout the internet, right? But it is really easy to do it within the local area network. So MAC addresses, are used only within the local network, but nevertheless, they are unique worldwide, right? Depending on the manufacturer, you get a particular number, and that's unique to you. So for example, if you go and look at the MAC address of your computer and your cell phone and anything, everything has a MAC address, and that includes all those devices like Alexa or Google Home, or all of those devices that connect to the network. Even if they do so wirelessly, they need a MAC address in order to connect to the network. In the case of Alexa, for example, if it's wireless, because it's not connected via Wi-Fi, then it's using a wireless protocol, and that will be a different protocol than if it were wired, and that is the layer 2 protocol. However, in order to speaking of Alexa in particular, in order for it to get to Amazon and answer a particular question that the user has, then it still needs to go throughout the whole stack, right? All the way to the session application, because the application layer in this case will be you speaking into the device. So here are some protocols, some Ethernet protocols, right? Like SLIP, PPP, FDDI, and as usual, we'll talk about this later, but just please keep in mind and write them down as data link layer protocols.